All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a piece of highway folklore that is, well, it's as fascinating as it is absolutely terrifying. We're going to break down the anatomy of a literal nightmare, one that preys on nighttime travelers. You know the feeling, right? The roads get quiet, the shadows stretch out, and, according to the stories we're unpacking today, sometimes the road itself turns against you.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like you're just driving in circles on a dark highway? You pass a weird-looking tree, and then, 20 minutes later, you pass that exact same tree. It's a creepy feeling, right? Well, today, we're looking at two harrowing experiences that take this everyday anxiety to a lethal extreme. We've got a college bus trip winding its way through a dense jungle, and a group of friends on a late-night drive to Lonavala. Both groups ran into something totally beyond explanation, and we're going to use their exact experiences to map out how this phenomenon actually operates.
All right, part one. What exactly is a chalava? Let's look at the origin of this highway haunting.
To understand what happened to these travelers, we first have to define what kind of entity we're actually dealing with. In the story of the college bus, a mysterious biker flags them down to give a warning, and later a school pawn breaks down the local lore for them. Basically, a chalava is described as the vengeful spirit of someone who tragically lost their life in a nighttime road accident. But listen, these aren't just your standard ghosts that jump out and yell boo. A chalava's ultimate weapons, they're your own fear and exhaustion. They specifically target tired travelers, literally draining their mental energy to slowly, methodically assert control over reality itself.
Okay, let's dive into how this works. Because the chalava doesn't just attack at random, no. It operates with a really precise, step-by-step playbook designed to completely break down its victims. Step 1, it traps the vehicle in a spatial loop. Step 2, it creates hyper-realistic, emotionally devastating illusions. And Step 3, which is definitely the most terrifying, it actually possesses a victim to destroy the whole group from the inside out. Let's look at how that first step traps the prey.
Moving on to part 2, the endless road trap. Nowhere to run.
So, the very first sign that a group has been targeted is this total corruption of distance and space. Escaping becomes physically impossible, basically because the road always leads back to the exact same spot. For the college bus, it didn't matter how fast or how far the driver drove. The bus just kept returning to the same wild boar-infested stretch of jungle where they initially stopped. And for the Lonavala crew, it was a complete manipulation of distance. After taking this sudden, mysterious detour, they saw a sign that read Lonavala 60 kilometers. But they had just left Lonavala, should have been an 8-hour drive. By completely bending space like this, the chalava totally isolates its victims from the real world.
Which brings us to part 3, illusions and mind games, breaking the victims.
Now, this is where it gets really sinister. The chalava brilliantly tailors its hyper-realistic illusions to perfectly target the emotional vulnerabilities of whatever specific group it's hunting. For example, on the college bus, a teacher named Sushil Sir suddenly sees a sign for his actual home village, Borgon. When the bus stops, he gets hit with this horrific illusion of a weeping crowd surrounding the brutally murdered bodies of his own wife, children, and parents. An old man inside this illusion completely shatters Sushil Sir's mind, almost convincing him to take his own life right then and there out of guilt. Meanwhile, for the Lonavala road trip, the illusion was totally different. It was this eerie, rundown roadside dhaba that just appeared out of absolutely nowhere. When Akshay goes to grab some food, the mysterious owner hands him a plate of raisin dal that is literally crawling with living bugs.
And it's at this exact dhaba that Akshay gets a genuinely chilling warning. The strange man looks at him and says, "He has reached you, he has tricked you, now none of you will survive." So the entity doesn't just want to scare them, right? It wants them to know that their reality has already been compromised and that their doom is pretty much inevitable.
And that brings us to part 4, the enemy within, the ultimate betrayal.
Now, here is where we reach the absolute most dangerous, paranoid aspect of this whole lore. These groups aren't just dealing with a standard haunting. On nights with no moon, they face what's called the Amavasya Chalava, a super deadly new moon variant. This specific type of chalava doesn't just create spooky illusions outside the bus or the car. No, it actively boards the vehicle. It targets the weakest, most exhausted passenger, instantly kills them with fear, and then possesses their dead body. It perfectly mimics the victim just to blend right in. Think about that for a second. The monster isn't outside scratching at the windows trying to get in. It's literally sitting right next to you in the passenger seat.
So, how do you fight something that looks and sounds exactly like your best friend?
Well, by paying extremely close attention to the details. You have to watch out for sudden behavioral changes or someone refusing their normal habits. Like Akshay realized something was horribly wrong when his friend Adi, who's usually a heavy smoker, violently swatted away a cigarette he was offered. You also have to look for inconsistencies in personal stories. Shrikant's figured out the student Sham was the imposter when Sham casually mentioned his uncle ran a travel agency. Shrikant knew for a fact that Sham's uncle sold street snacks outside their college. And the darkest, creepiest tell of all? Smiling during tragedy. Akshay literally caught Adi sitting there, super comfortable, just smiling, while their friends were basically trying to strangle each other.
The psychological terror totally peaks with the big reveal. In the college bus, after it successfully manipulates the teachers, the driver, and the peon into violently turning on each other and dying, Shyam just drops the act entirely. He turns, looks at Shrikant with glowing red eyes, and says, "Why are you shocked? I am the Chalava." It proudly admits to picking off the weakest student at the very beginning of the trip, killing him, and orchestrating every single argument and death from the inside.
All right, let's move to part 5, surviving until dawn, beating the ticking clock.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that surviving this nightmare isn't about physically fighting a ghost, it's all about staying rational and rigidly following a strict set of rules. Rule number 1, do not stop the vehicle. The Chalava desperately wants you to stop so its external illusions can close in on you. Rule 2, do not blindly trust your companions, because, well, one of them might already be dead. Rule 3, do not fall for emotional illusions. Sushil Sir failed this one, and it cost him dearly. And finally, Rule 4, you have to outsmart the possessed host and literally destroy the physical vessel so the entity is forced to expel itself.
All of this intense psychological warfare builds up against a terrifying ticking clock. To put this into perspective, at around 12:30 a.m., the trap begins as the vehicle slips into that spatial loop. By 2 a.m., the illusions hit their absolute peak. This is when the Lonavala crew actually crashed their car trying to avoid a phantom girl and when that fake Daba appeared. Then, by 3 a.m., the internal paranoia and betrayal completely take over, with lifelong friends violently turning on each other under the Chalava's subtle influence. But the absolute key to survival is 4 a.m. When dawn breaks, the rising sun strips the entity's strength completely. If you can just outlast it or destroy its physical host before the sun comes up, the entity is expelled as black smoke and defeated.
We've explored the rules, the traps, and the terrifying mind games of this Amavasya variant. Now, the survivors of these 2 trips did make it out, but they were forever changed by the friends they lost along the way. So I'll leave you with this final thought from our explainer today. Next time you're on a road trip late at night, the music is playing, everyone's having a good time, and you realize you've just passed the exact same landmark for the second time, take a very, very close look at the person sitting in the passenger seat next to you. Are you absolutely sure you know who they are? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Stay safe out there on the roads.